Hello and welcome to the October edition of Gloucester's Current Conversations podcast. I'm Quentin Shepard, Director of Community Engagement and Public Information for Gloucester County. And today we're joined with Steve Baranek, our Chief Animal Control Officer. Welcome, Steve.
Welcome, Quentin.
We're going to learn a little bit more about animal control today and talk about one of the big events that they're getting ready to host, their Rabies Clinic, and just learn a little bit about how we can protect our pets as we begin to enter into cold weather season. But first, let's learn a little bit about Steve. Steve, how long have you been with the county and with the department?
I've been with the county just shy of 25 years.
How long have you been chief?
I've been chief for about the past 10 or so years.
Okay. We're grateful for your leadership and your service to the community. I know that y'all are a group of you've got you as chief, and then you've got three deputy animal
Three
control
deputies. We
officers.
got one dispatcher as well,
Okay.
as well as two other people that fill in when our dispatcher might be out.
Okay. All right. Great. And you all are 24/7 as far as being on call. So somebody is always available if there's an issue.
Correct. Anytime after hours, normal duty hours, which would of course be in the evenings and on weekends as well as holidays. We have one officer that's assigned to work that time. It rotates all the time, so we all get to do on call,
Okay.
and we respond to any kind of emergencies, not regular calls. If there's an emergency situation, we'll come out. Doesn't matter what time of the day or night it is.
Okay. And can you give us just a couple of examples of things that would constitute an emergency situation?
Sure. If there's an animal attacking someone or somebody's animal, if there's a dog bite situation, if there's livestock out on Route 17, which happens sometimes, or
Uh,
14, that's running at large, and of course we help out with the sheriff's department and any other state or federal agency that might ask for our help. We've helped them before too.
okay. All right. So before we start talking about the serious stuff, looking back on your 25 years, what sticks out to you as one of the most unique calls or experiences that you've been on over the past 2.5 decades?
One of the most unique would probably have to be the loose emus we had back in 2003 when we had Isabel.
Uh-huh.
We chased around two emus for probably close to a month before
Wow.
we finally caught them, and that was definitely a unique situation. How to capture them too. Never had to deal with emus before, and you don't want to get kicked by those. They're like an ostrich, they can kick really hard. So,
I'm surprised we haven't seen footage of that pop up on YouTube or somewhere yet.
oh no, that's before we had body cameras.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I'm kind of glad, that's
Yeah,
we don't
absolutely.
need to have that footage
Absolutely.
now.
So Steve, tell us a little bit about this rabies clinic. So it's going to be held, I know, on October 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Gloucester High School parking lot, but this year is going to be a little bit different because you all are going to be able to treat cats as well. Have you ever done cats before, or is this the first time?
Well, we just started doing rabies clinics again with the help from the Raritan Club, who works with one of the doctors over at Gloucester Vets.
Okay.
And we used to do them years ago, and they changed around a bunch of state laws dealing with the paperwork involved with rabies.
Hmm.
And none of the vets wanted to do it because the added, paperwork that was, burdened onto them.
Hmm.
Of course, years ago we did do cats. People would bring their cats in their cars, and as they're trying to give them a vaccination, the cat would get loose, and we're chasing cats through the parking lot and everything over at the high school. And this, like I said, it was probably about 10 years ago we stopped doing them,
Uh-huh.
and we started doing them last year again.
Okay. All
So
right.
this year we're going to do cats. The
Okay.
first three rabies clinics we did, we didn't do cats
Mhm.
because we wanted to see how many people, try to get the awareness out there that we are having rabies clinics. And this one on October 12th, we are going to do cats. We're going to have a trailer set up with a veterinary inside the trailer, and they're going to take the cat that's inside a carrier. All the cats have got to be in carriers, and they're going to take the cat, put it in the trailer. So, God forbid, if the cat does get loose, it's contained, and they can catch
Yes.
the cat, and make sure it doesn't run off into the woods or something like that.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. It
Yeah.
sounds like you've learned from experience.
Yes. Yes. This will work out good.
And as far as the dogs have to be on a leash. Can the traditionally aggressive dogs be have a protective muzzle on to keep them from biting at any of the technicians?
Exactly. We want to keep them safe as well as the dog too. And
Yes.
and by having a muzzle on it, that
Hmm.
kind of takes that whole equation of possible biting out of it if you know you have
Sure.
an aggressive dog.
Hmm.
I'd like to say also that if your dog has had a rabies shot before in the past, please bring that paperwork with you. Because
Okay.
if you don't have that paperwork with you, the rabies shot that will be administered on October 12th will only be good for 1 year. So if your dog has had, or your cat has had a rabies shot before, then, and you show that paperwork, then that shot becomes a 3-year shot.
Okay.
It's the same price of $10 either way. But the first rabies shot for any cat or dog in the state of Virginia is only good for 1 year.
Okay, that's good to know. So please make sure you bring any records of previous rabies shots with you to the clinic on October 12th. And
Correct.
you did mention that there a cost is $10 per animal. It goes directly to Friends of Animal Control.
Yes, it does. Nonprofit that supports animal control. That's who gets all the profits from this.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about the Friends group. I know that they work alongside you all and they help to make sure that the animals in the shelter are fed well and taken care of.
Well, our volunteers, we got a lot of volunteers, which is great, but some volunteers only come like once a week,
Mm.
some come every day, and we're always looking for more volunteers. But what they do is they come and they help feed the dogs, they help walk them. We have play areas. Well, we do right now play areas where we're in the process of rebuilding our play area. So
Okay,
we do have some play areas, we should say some fenced areas where the dogs could run a little bit more freely. Um, but that's ongoing, and we're going to finish that up here pretty shortly. So they socialize the animals
okay,
in the
good.
morning when they get actually walked by the people who clean the shelter, our
Mhm.
kenneling staff, and they also are walked in the afternoon, and of course socialized with other dogs.
Animals, dogs that are in the county shelter are not just stuck in a pen all day long. They are let out and cared for by volunteers. They are exercised and they are socialized with other animals. So I think that's important to know because, we always see the cartoons and all and misconceptions of a dog in a pound where they're just sitting there, inside of a small area and don't see the light of day. But that's not the case with our shelter.
Correct. And also our volunteers also foster a lot of these dogs too. We do have
That's great.
a program just to get them out of the shelter until we could find their forever home.
Sure, absolutely.
That's an also added advantage to all our volunteers.
And if somebody's interested in volunteering with the Friends group, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you can call us and get some information
Okay.
for sure. Call our department, but you could also come down to the shelter. Usually, every single day, actually, say every single day, even rain or shine, our volunteers are here between 3:30 and 5 o'clock
Okay.
at the shelter, and we have trails that they walk the dogs on back behind the shelter, like I said, and they take them out to the play area, and you can talk with some of the people there, and they have an application that they would fill out, and we.
Great.
Yeah.
Good to know. And we'll put that information in the description of the podcast for everybody to go back and reference. Steve, tell us as we head into cold weather season, what are some tips to keep pets safe and secure during the winter months?
Well, of course, winter months come along, and you got the cold and possibly snow. Uh, and you need to make sure that you have adequate shelter as well as bedding for the animals to make sure that they stay warm and don't freeze to death. We don't want that. So it's required by the state law is during weather where it's cold out, the dog houses that you have must have a windbreak.
Okay.
And, a lot of people don't understand what a windbreak is, but that's something to keep the snow and the wind to blow directly in the front door and onto the dog. So there's different ways you could do that. You could hang up some kind of plastic sheathing and cut strips in it so this way it blocks the wind. You can actually erect a wall in front of the opening to the dog house with a small roof so the wind can't blow directly into the front door. For my dog houses that I got at home, I actually offset the entrance. It's a rectangle shape. I slide the entrance all the way to one side. So if the wind did blow in, the dog has the other wall to hide behind it it's actually to the right hand side or the left hand side. And it could hide behind it. You also have to have adequate bedding as well to keep the dogs warm. What's adequate bedding? Something that's not going to retain water. So you could use hay or straw or cedar chips or pine chips. But if you use blankets and they get wet, they're just going to stay wet and turn into one big clump of ice. You know,
Okay.
if you do use blankets, make sure it's the roof's not leaking or
Hmm.
they can't get wet because
Hmm.
that's just not going to do anything for the dog at all.
Sure. Sure.
They also the doghouse must be large enough. If you have one big doghouse and you got two small dogs, that's fine. But the doghouse has got to be big enough, or the dog houses to house the dog so it could actually stand up, lay down, turn around, and be comfortable. And I know this is a sore subject with a lot of hunters, but the blue and white barrels are not adequate shelter
Okay.
according to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office up in Richmond. There's two reasons why. If you got a hound in there, it cannot lay down properly, turn around, and stand up inside a barrel. And also, more so, the plastic that it's made out of is it's very, I don't want to say not brittle, but strong. It's
Uh-huh.
also very thin. And it does not it doesn't keep the heat in, it lets the heat out.
Okay.
Uh, People say, well, you got these igloos that are made out of plastic. Well, the igloos are actually made of a special plastic that's aerated, and
Okay.
it's usually a little bit thicker. And that aeration of the plastic actually contains the heat better than just the solid plastic.
Okay.
So we're telling the hunters that can't be using them anymore. That's a law that actually um, happened many years ago, and we've been slowly filtering everybody and telling everybody, listen, got to get rid of them.
That's good to know. Thank you for bringing that up as a reminder for everybody.
Of course, with hunting season coming along, that's one thing that we get a lot of calls about beagles and hounds running through people's yards and stuff. And yes, it's legal here in the state of Virginia on the east side of the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Hmm.
Um, well, if you have dogs running through your yard, and it's totally legal for them to be there.
Hmm.
Okay. If you live in a leash law area and you're a hunter and you're hunting in a leash law area with dogs, yes, they can be off leash, but you have to be actively hunting with the dogs.
Okay.
Meaning, if we see dogs running around in a leash law area and the hunter is down the street trying to gather his dogs, that's totally fine. He's actively hunting.
Okay.
Or if we pick up a dog and it's got a phone number on it and we call up the hunter and of course all dogs in Gloucester County must have a county license on its collar.
Okay.
Okay. That's county law. Okay. But we pick up a dog, it's got a license, an ID tag on it with a phone number. We call that hunter, and the hunter says, "Well, I'm at home and I'm eating dinner, and we picked it up in the Leashville area." He's not actively hunting. Okay. But if he's out looking for his dogs, we'll be glad to call him up, say, "Here's your dog, give you back your dog. It's got a license on it. It's totally fine."
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So we get a lot of calls about people really concerned about these dogs running through the yard.
Sure.
What state law also says is if you have a large piece of property and some of these hunters use tracking collars and whatever, and they know where their dogs are, the hunter is allowed to go onto your property to get their dog,
Okay.
but they cannot carry a firearm
Mhm.
and they cannot drive on your property.
Okay.
They can
Has
walk
to
onto your
walk.
property. Of
Okay.
course, if you give them permission to drive on your property, that's fine. You know,
Sure. Sure.
if a hunter, you see a hunter walking through your backyard, he's trying to get his dog,
Yeah.
not trespassing.
All good to know. Some of those things I didn't realize. So that
Yeah.
thank you. What are some things that are beyond the scope of animal control that you all might receive inquiries about?
Hmm, that's a tough one. I mean, you get it. We do get into wildlife complaints. We
Hmm.
do a lot of wildlife complaints for the game wardens. We'd like to
Okay.
help them out. There's only like two or three of them for the neighboring two or three counties. I'd have to say probably the leading one that we don't respond to after hours is when people pick up stray dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. When you pick up a stray dog, I'm glad you picked it up. I'm glad it's you're keeping it safe.
Hmm.
But the county unfortunately pays us by the hour,
Uh-huh.
and they're not going to pay us overtime to pick up a stray dog.
Okay. So that they need to be handled during regular hours.
Yes, if you pick up a stray dog, you are now basically the owner until it is turned over to us. And if you find a dog, you must contact animal control within 72 hours and tell
Okay.
us about the dog. We do get a lot of calls where people say, "Well, I found this dog about 3 weeks ago, and it just doesn't fit my house."
Hmm.
And we go, "Did you call animal control? Because we don't have a report of it." And they go, "No, no, we just figure we keep it." That's against the law.
Yeah,
Law
absolutely.
says you have 72 hours. If you find a companion animal, dog or cat, you must contact animal control and tell us about it. Okay.
Okay.
This way, because somebody might be looking for their dog
Sure. Yeah,
and you're
absolutely.
holding it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's
Good to know.
dogs,
Another good piece of information.
yeah,
Yeah.
dogs are personal property, dogs and cats in the state of Virginia, kind of like a TV set. So you just can't keep holding on to it.
Exactly. Any other good tips before we wrap up that some things that a lot of people might not realize that that maybe you could help remind folks about?
There are certain areas in this county that are leash law and
Hmm.
certain areas that are not.
Okay.
And that's kind of frustrating on a lot of people. They can't fathom that, where they live at, it's not a leash law area. We can still talk to the owners of the dogs, and there is still a nuisance ordinance that can be worked with the complainant.
Okay.
We like to talk to people. We don't like to take people to court. We don't like to go to court ourselves.
Oh,
We like to, work with the public, inform them, and educate them to what the laws are.
okay.
And of course, if they make those changes that, if they were in violation, then that's fantastic.
Sure. Hmm.
What we want to hear and see.
Great. Well, thank you, Steve, for everything that y'all do and for working, around the clock to make sure our animals are kept safe and in good condition. We appreciate what y'all do. And one final thing, that, your dogs in the shelter are up for adoption.
Correct.
Um, and there's a link on the Animal Control's website on how to go about adopting, and you can even take a look and see what types of dogs are available for adoption.
Hmm.
And I'll include that link in the description of the podcast as well.
That'd be great. Yep. And if anybody's got any questions, please give us a call, and
Okay.
we'll be glad to, help them out.
All right, Steve, thank you so much for your time.
All right, Quentin. Nice seeing you, and you take care.
You take care.